He said, "You see, they finally are going to kill me."
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at 10 times justice was actually served.
I want to make it clear that it is the court's intention that the defendant never set foot in free society again.
For this list, we're looking at those long sentences that were more than well-deserved, given to people who unfortunately once walked this earth. Do you think justice was really served in all of these cases? Let us know in the comments. 1,200 years for Richard Speck.
I was scared of him. Plain and honest truth, I was scared of him.
Even before the worst of his crimes was committed, Richard Speck committed crimes and brought extreme harm to the people in the many cities he lived in.
A tattoo on Speck's forearm read, "Born to raise hell." But it was the empty boast of a young man who always wished he was tougher.
However, in South Chicago in July of 1966, his rather memorable tattoo implicated him in the assault and deaths of 8 nursing students who lived in a communal home together. After being convicted, the American mass murderer was initially sentenced to death, but that was later reversed. While serving a sentence of 400 to 1,200 years, nature ran its course, and the self-described freak died in 1991, just shy of 50 from heart complications.
Richard Franklin Speck was a very ordinary guy, and that's in the final analysis what makes him so frightening. We've all met lots of Richard Specks in our life. They knock on the door and ask if they could shovel the snow. We see them panhandling on the street. A very ordinary guy.
161 life sentences for Terry Nichols.
This day reminds me of when we lost so many wonderful, good people for such a lousy, no good reason.
American homegrown terror attacks weren't quite as common in the 1990s, making the Oklahoma City attack all the more shocking.
It was an act of cowardice, and it was evil.
When thinking of this terrible crime, which killed more than 160, most think of the lead conspirator, Timothy McVeigh, who was given the death penalty in 2001.
McVeigh is specifically charged with having delivered the bomb to the Murrah building in a truck that he rented under a false name and having detonated the bomb at the Murrah building.
However, he did not act alone, nor was he the only one to receive a brutal hand of justice. While not executed, Terry Nichols, who planned the attack with McVeigh, was given 161 consecutive life sentences with no chance of parole. 28 life sentences, 1 death sentence, and more for Bobby Joe Long.
During 1984, Tampa Bay, Florida, was plagued by a sadistic serial killer.
Convicted in the mid-'80s, Bobby Joe Long was ultimately executed in 2019. Imprisoned for kidnapping, assault, and the murder of at least 10, Long was sentenced to a 5-year prison sentence plus 4 99-year terms, 28 life sentences, and the death sentence. Long's spree ended after the 26-hour abduction of Lisa McVeigh, who survived the 1984 ordeal.
This guy, he knew what he was doing. He had me. I could have been dead.
Following this, Long confessed to 9 murders, but claimed to have committed as many as 50, largely by systematically targeting women through small appliance classified ads.
And it's not a good feeling. It's not a pleasant feeling. I'm not proud of anything I've done. And the worst thing is I don't understand why.
10,000 years for Dudley Wayne Kyzer. Almost 20 years before the O.J. Simpson case, there was a similar case involving a Tuscaloosa man, Dudley Wayne Kyzer, and his estranged wife. Dubbed the Halloween murderer for the timing of his killings, Kyzer shot not only his wife, but also her mother and a college student who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. He was first given the death sentence in 1977, but after that was overturned by the Supreme Court, 10,000 years plus 2 life sentences were put on him in the early 1980s, a history-making sentence at the time. Despite his claims of remorse, he has been denied parole 10 times as of 2016. 35 life sentences for Billy Joel Godfrey. Unfortunately, there are people all over the world who got away with doing horrific things to people they're related to, and Billy Joe Godfrey from Rolla, Missouri was almost one of them. In 2014, after years of living with a terrible secret, an adult man came forward and revealed that his stepfather had abused him. After so blatantly stealing innocence, Godfrey was put away for 35 life sentences, or 1,050 years in prison, 1 term for each count of the crime he was found guilty of. 1,503 years in jail for Rene Lopez. In October of 2016, Fresno Superior Court put out its largest prison sentence to that date, 1,503 years, and with good cause. 3 years earlier, November 2013, Rene Lopez was arrested after his daughter called to report 4 years of harassment and abuse. At her father's trial, this young woman testified to the disgusting manner in which she lived and was treated for those years. Having demonstrated zero remorse either throughout those 4 years or during his trial, Lopez's sentence was handed down, and that was that. 12 life sentences and 3,318 years for James Holmes. When The Dark Knight Rises came out in 2012, people were excited. However, for one young man, there was another reason entirely for the excitement. That year, in a crowded Colorado movie theater at the height of the action on screen, James Holmes made the violence very real, opening fire on the crowd. He injured at least 70 and sadly killed 12.
Police arrived on the scene less than 2 minutes after the rampage started, but it was chaos.
Plus, thanks to media coverage, he made the whole nation fear an American pastime.
He looked like someone who didn't know what was going on.
After a convoluted trial, 12 life sentences for the shooting, plus 3,318 years for the possession of explosives was considered a fair sentence.
All right, Sheriff, get the defendant out of my courtroom, please.
42,922 years for Jamal Zougam.
Well, as you can imagine, this is the end of a highly charged and emotional day.
March 11th, 2004, morning, Madrid, Spain. The commuter trains are running on schedule. Suddenly, 10 almost simultaneous explosions go off on 4 of those trains, leaving 191 dead and around 2,000 injured. This atrocity, dubbed by outsiders as Spain's 9/11 and known as 11M within that nation, was found to be the doing of multiple terrorists, including Moroccan Jamal Zougam. While the Spanish court system linked the attacks to a Sunni pan-Islamist militant organization, no direct link was found to them in 2007.
And it's not the first time a European country has faced homegrown terror attacks.
Convicted on murder and attempted murder charges, Zougam received 42,922 years in prison, while the Spanish Emilio Suarez Tras Horas received 34,715 years.
The bombings left a lasting legacy both for Spain and for Europe as a whole.
32,500 years for Alan Wayne McLaurin and Darren Benelford Anderson. The world unfortunately has some terrible people within it, and these two are amongst the worst. It is the intimacy of their atrocity that makes it most disturbing. In Tulsa in 1993, a woman's car was suddenly run off the road by 3 men in the car behind her. Before she knew what was happening, all 3 of them attacked the newlywed for hours before she could contact the police. Though one man was never convicted, Alan Wayne McLaurin and Darren Benelford Anderson were put away for 21,250 years and 11,250 years respectively. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. 30,000 years for Charles Scott Robinson. Jurors gave 5,000 years for each count against Charles Scott Robinson, which ultimately earned him 30,000 in prison. The sentence, which was handed down in 1994, was determined by the jury due to life without parole not being a sentencing option. The judge, meanwhile, turned the screw a little harder when he ordered the terms to be served consecutively rather than concurrently, thus denying Robinson, then 30, the chance of parole until the age of 108. This has since gone down as the longest sentence in U.S. history, and given that multiple innocents were involved, the sentence was definitely justified.